compare and contrast your pre-course expectations of what you thought you were going to get before going into the course, and then what was different about what you actually got from it?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, obviously, like knowing your personality and like the bits and pieces that I did see prior to the course, I guess I wouldn't say I was cautious, but like I didn't know how militant it was going to be in terms of just like, like this is the do's and the don'ts, the evil white man. But so what I learned, and what I appreciated is like the historical context you took us down, and the kind of the approach in which you gave us the history of racism and the evolution. So like, I didn't feel like you were trying to force an agenda or a way to think. You were just more or less like giving us historical facts, how we got to this place. So that was, I wouldn't say a contrast, but that was very much well received.
For sure, for sure. That's what's up, man. That's, and we spoke about this before, but I definitely try to do that. Like, there is a part of me that does want to tell people, yo, you need to know this. You need to think about this in this type of way. But then I realized that heavy-handed approach, it doesn't produce the results that you really want. What you really want is true buy-in.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to have the facts and have the information so that it's not necessarily you speaking or you trying to, me trying to be a salesperson and convince you or influence you, but like, no, I want real buy-in. I try to create that model so that everyone can reproduce that model.
No, that read through for sure, because I mean, like you can't argue with facts. You can't argue with dates and history. So this wasn't Emmanuel's opinion. This wasn't like the way you should think. It was more or less like, these are the facts, and you laid it out in a way in which people were able to absorb it. And I think the approach you took allowed for there to be more conversation, as opposed to people feeling on edge. Like, if I have a question, or maybe I should already know that. It was just more or less like, here's the history of everything that happened. Like, this is how it's being shaped. And then I think you use the terminology a lot, remix. And like, we kept seeing themes and where certain laws and things were remixed.
And also there's the preconceived notion of, I'm Black, I have the lived experience. Why do I need to learn anything else?
Oh, well, I would say this, because I mean, everyone had probably, different things going on in the home, but from what we learned in school, this isn't it. We didn't learn this in school. We get like a month, like in school, it just, at least from my experience, so we just showed up here, like around 1800. There's no like really history or story about how we lived prior to that, right? And that we did have civilization, and we did have wealth, and we did have our own traditions. So I think the fact that, we only get a month at best, and that's watered down. So whether you have lived experience or not, I think that this would benefit, all Black folks. In fact, I recommend it to my grandmother. She's in her 70s, right? Because I know that there's some things that she hasn't learned from this. I mean, she might know more than I knew coming from where she came from and things like that. But I think it would be beneficial for all Black people.
Sure. Last question.
And people that want to be Black allies, not just all Black people, because I mean, we need allies as well.
For sure, definitely.
I think this is essential for this better understanding our history. It's also, kind of therapeutic, and like learning, like, hey, like there's nothing that I did individually to like have these type of relationships or these encounters. Like, this is not saying it's part of the plan, but these things have been going on for years. So it's kind of alleviate some of the like built up frustration you have. Sometimes you don't know why. Like, you said your parents can tell you they grew up in this era and it was racist, but we didn't have to deal with segregation from that perspective, or it wasn't law. So ours is a little bit different, but it helped me from that context. And then I think, from an organization standpoint, like having led organizations, having been in discussions about DE&I think, organizations got to ask themselves how uncomfortable are they willing to be at a place where they're comfortable getting their leadership, their employees, this type of information so they can make breakthroughs. I mean, we can say, I'm going to get X amount of people in these positions, but what does that mean if the systems aren't in place and the structures aren't in place for them to be successful and welcomed? So I think that part is critical. I mean, a lot of times people think going out and hiring Black people or minorities is the answer, but you got to retain them. You got to make them feel welcomed. And in order to do that, you got to understand what the things are that make them not feel welcomed.
Got to break down that culture.
Yeah, for sure.
And change the power dynamic, and got to shift.
I mean, if you're on the fence, I would encourage you, reach out to me or whatever I could do to help you. But this is a must participate in session for us just to get a better idea of the structures and the power dynamics and really shift it, because I think there's been a lot of energy. We've been, rightfully so, we've been fighting, we've been protesting, but how do we take a step back and say, from an individual perspective, these are the patterns or these are the things I'm going to do to better improve the future and better improve my family's future and just the overall culture. So I think it's something that everybody should participate in.